Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Tanishai Ford Show. I am so honored to have today's guest, and today's topic is very exciting. We're going to examine how the black community actually supports black businesses and why the Buy Black campaign is considered racist. Today's guest is Mr. Floyd Jones. He is the Vice President of the Independent Business Associations. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Glad you're joining me today.
Hi, how are you, Doc? Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, is the Buy Black campaign racist?
No, of course not. The Buy Black campaign is something that business people like myself within our community feel is very necessary, in fact. I think historically, people have associated the struggle of our community, with things like segregation. They've quite often heard us complain about being segregated and being away from other folks, and how we've always, had a desire to be considered like everybody else equally. So it's somewhat natural that folks are going to be a little bit resistant initially when we start talking about Buy Black specifically. They're going to take it as being somewhat antagonistic, but it's not. It's a very, very positive and productive and necessary part of, I think, the evolution and the development of businesses with our community. Our people, our culture have to understand how critical it is for us to own businesses, for us to develop wealth, grow wealth, and support each other.
Okay, but right now, when we look at the media, even the media gives it a negative connotation. And seeing that we're in the 21st century, and just saying what you just said, everybody should be on the same page, but the media even gives it a negative connotation. Why is that?
Well, part of the media's job is to create sensation, right? And also, there's a storyline behind anything that's potentially controversial. But what we do in terms of strengthening our community and strengthening, again, our capabilities and our attempts at developing wealth is all good for America. The stronger our community is, the more positive we can be in our contributions toward American society.
Okay.
So it's all positive, actually.
Okay, what about the other communities? Right now, the buzz is, when we say Buy Black, then the Latinos, the Asians, the other business people, they're saying, oh, you're trying to take business away from us. And we're not saying buy Latino. We're not saying buy Mexican. We're not saying buy Japanese. We're saying just buy. And you're saying Buy Black. You have to try to reel people in to buy from you. So how do you feel about that?
Well, one thing about groups within our community, and I tell people all the time, because folks really don't have a clear understanding of this, much of the effectiveness of capitalism is associated with group identity. When we look in our community, for instance, historically in Detroit, I grew up in Detroit. I grew up on the northwest side of Detroit. In the 60s, for instance, the Jewish community dominated the business environment, on Dexter Davidson. I remember buying my clothes from Mel. We remember buying my hardware from Jack's. I used to go to Lou's Deli, Dexter Davidson Market. Right. And I think even as a youngster, I recognized the fact that this was a specific community group, and they were, a powerful entity within our community. Of course, we loved them. They were everyday people just like us, but there was a recognition that this is a specific, ethnic group here. Yes. Later on, in the 70s, the Chaldean community came in, and they had a vision in regards to the grocery stores and the gas stations. Once again, I sort of noticed that seemed to be tied around a specific ethnic group.
That's true. That's true.
Later on, the Koreans came in, and all of a sudden now, something that's very popular within our community, the hair product area, this ethnic group. Yes. So, see, historically, we've been always associated with being the consumers of products and goods.
I was just ready to ask you that, yes.
It may be a little bit antagonistical that we're attempting now to become, develop strong business, and form ourselves some ethnic identity around the business area.
Okay, but I want to ask another point. You talked about consumers, the black people being more consumers and not manufacturers. Okay, why is that? Why are we more consumers and not manufacturers?
I think a lot to do with the consumption orientation in our community is directly related to how we came into this country. You know, for instance, I mentioned these other ethnic groups who are part of our community right now, are part of our business community right now. When these folks come to America, they typically will have a vision in advance, sometimes with a strategy behind that vision. And that vision is to identify how can they, in fact, as a group, become part of the American dream. And the real American dream is accumulating wealth and independence. And so they have this vision coming into the country where we, of course, came into the country through a different type of process.
You were like
And
purposeless, so to speak.
well, you know, we came into the country, you know, historically, you know, through slavery and through evolution. So we didn't have the opportunity to have a vision and a strategy behind coming to America in our process here.
Okay, but we have the opportunity. So, see, we always hear that. You know, it's always an excuse why we're not doing so. We blame the white man. You blame the Asians because they have the beauty and barber supplies. Okay, now we're in the 21st century.
Right.
Now we have all these opportunities.
Right.
Okay, so now my other question is, why aren't we supporting black businesses? Now, you know, land of opportunity now. We can't continue to blame whether the Mexicans are doing this and the Asians have all the beauty and barber supply stores. The Asians have the beauty and barber supply stores, and we're the blacks, we're the consumers, and we go in there and buy all the products. Why can't we say, I think I want to have a beauty and barber supply store too? Why aren't we doing that?
And Dr. Ford, I agree with you 100,000%.
We have to do something about that, Mr. Jones.
And I think what we're doing, in fact, right here, right now, is moving in that particular direction. As you know, I'm part of a couple of business associations, and our whole purpose is not only to stimulate the growth and development, but also to focus attention on the fact that we need more young entrepreneurs in our community. We absolutely have to have it. It's absolutely necessary for us to do that. And I think we've got something today that'll give us a better opportunity at achieving that getting out the word, so to speak. Yeah. And that is what's available today in terms of technology. You know, everybody's heard about Facebook and everybody's heard about the internet, and we've seen examples most recently of how powerful this technology is in terms of its communication capability. When we look at the Middle East most recently, we see how uprisings have, quote unquote, gone wildly, you know, sort of like from country to country in the Middle East now. And that's really related to the fact that people can instantaneously communicate any kind of idea. So for us in the black community, now we've got people who think that, yes, we do need to be entrepreneurial and oriented. It's absolutely necessary, and we're all over the country. But now we can communicate with each other very effectively with this technology. So I think we'll be rolling.
But one of the things I know that's true, you know, and I remember you saying this to me. You said it's critical. That's the key word that you used. You said it's critical that black people have businesses. If you can give me that answer in a few minutes, actually just a couple of seconds, can you just give me that answer? Why? Why is it critical that black people have businesses?
It's critical for two reasons. Number one, it's absolutely necessary beyond belief that we develop a legacy that we can pass down through generations. We've got to develop a legacy that we can pass to our children, our great-grandchildren, because what we've got to have is a capability as a community to be able to support ourselves, to be independent, to be strong, to be self-sufficient. And when times are bad, we see how absolutely necessary it is. You know, I've heard it saying many times, when America gets a cold, the black community catches like pneumonia. And it's true when you think about it, because we are absolutely dependent upon other groups of people to feed ourselves.
But have we been brainwashed? This is what I'm saying. You know, you talked about slavery time. Is it something in our DNA? You know, is it something that we've been embedded? But before you answer that question, I just want you to hold on to that thought, because we're getting ready to take a commercial break, and I'm going to ask that question when we come back. Okay? Right. Thank you.
Honey, what are we gonna do with the kids this summer?
S&K Bouncers! By renting one of their 3-in-1 bouncers, available for all occasions. Birthdays, picnics, family outings, and oh, guess what? They be any and all prices. Their 3-in-1 bouncers are only $225 for a full day setup. I need you to call and reserve one right now at 313-208-6716.
That's what's up, I'm about to call them now.
You're sleeping on Rough Dog Entertainment. The package, the album, is in stores right now, featuring songs like Facebook Pro, D-Boy Thing, and we know y'all love that Chevy Sitting High. You can also download it on iTunes or Amazon, and check us out on Facebook, Moco Space, and YouTube. Rough Dog ENT, RUFFDOGGENT.
Wouldn't you like to know who the father is for professional DNA testing that costs less than a do-it-yourself kit called DNA Dimensions? It's easy. With a simple swab of the mouth, you can put all doubt to rest. Confidential results in 3 business days. DNA Dimensions, with convenient locations in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. Walk-ins welcome in Detroit and Flint. Call toll-free 855-DNA-TEST. That's 855-362-8378. DNA Dimensions, removing all doubt.
Experience this life-changing story that will leave you refreshed, renewed, and inspired to face life's most challenging times. This is a comma, not a period in your life, by Dr. Tanisha Ford. You will never look at sickness and other life's challenges the same again. This is a comma, not a period in your life, by Dr. Tanisha Ford. Go to www.drtford.com to order today.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, again, my guest is Mr. Floyd Jones, and we're talking about how black people relate and support black businesses, and it's the Buy Black campaign racist. When we left off, Mr. Jones, I was asking you about back in slavery day. You made a statement about how back in slavery day, how we were indoctrinated, how we were inbred, to sort of be against one another and not really support one another, the really Lynch syndrome. You know what I'm saying? And so right now, carrying into the 21st century, do you believe that that mindset is still here today? Although we are educated people, although we are there are more black starting businesses, although people are have more money to spend. Like, for example, I know that right now that there's over $1 trillion that we spend, you know what I'm saying? But how much of that is going into the black businesses?
Well, I personally have thought about the whole concept. I've heard it many times mentioned about, well, what about the tribalism gene that we might have from Africa that keeps us from operating in a unified way as other groups do? I don't see a lot of that. What I do see about our culture, I've noticed during my lifetime, is that there's a certain level of hustle that's part of our culture. And that hustle actually is a natural inclination toward entrepreneurship and business, if you really think about it. It just has to be focused and really directed.
Are we cohesive though? Okay, we're
I think,
hustling, but that's an individual thing.
I think that's going to be a natural evolution of being sort of in the game. Okay. One of the issues, and in fact, quite often I hear people complain about black business, about a bad experience with black business. And what I tell people is, one of the problems is that, for the most part, African Americans don't come across black businesses, African American business, for the most part. And when they do so, if it just so happened that circumstance is not positive, then there's a lot of focus specifically on that, as opposed to coming across a bad business in any other type of category. So if it's a more normalized situation for black folks, then I think a lot of the quote-unquote negative association with a bad experience I've had with a black company will really disappear and really not be there even at all.
Okay, well, let me say this. Yes, it's a very profound statement you just made. Okay, now, we talk about the bad experiences. Oftentimes, you look at the other ethnic groups, it's the businesses are passed down from generation to generation. With us, it's a first-time generation. Oftentimes, it ends right there. Like, for example, I have a business. My desire is to pass it on to my son, but he may not want to pick it up, all right? And oftentimes, a black person will start the business, like I said, and when they're dead and gone, people take their money, and that's the end of that business. With other ethnic groups, what do they do? Third and fourth generations, right?
Absolutely.
And so therefore, they're taught how to, like, brings me to my next question. They're taught how to relate to customers. You know what I'm saying? Because one of the problems I see, and you may not agree with this, one of the problems I see where people are not supporting black business, especially black people, not supporting their own. Like I said, I've had so many bad experiences, I can write a book about that. I call them the wannabes, all right? And because, like you said, poor customer service is one of the things they complain about, right?
Sure.
Jacked up prices. I can have a gas station. You can have a gas station. You might be an Arab, and I'm a black person. My price is going to be a little higher than yours. I'm greedy. And then lastly, I'm not going to support the black business down the street from me. Those are the three areas that I think a lot of people complain about. And is it because we're not being taught how to be entrepreneurs? I mean, we have the ideals. We're very bright people. We're very intuitive. But do we know how to run a business?
I think a lot of that comes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier in the program about the vision as a culture.
Okay.
See what happens, and I mentioned a little bit earlier about how capitalism works very well with identity, group identity. Because as for the Jewish people, as for the Korean folks, as for the Chaldean people, you notice how entrepreneurship, business is an important part of their culture.
Yes.
So it's like, and the reason why programs like this are so very important is because we need to get to the bottom line in our culture. We need to make our young people understand, when I say that, it's absolutely mandatory that we in fact are owners of our destiny, especially in America, because America is a place where you get the greatest opportunity to capitalize on that. We have to learn what it means to be in business, how important it is to be in business, how important it is to own your own, how important it is to develop a legacy that you can pass on, so that we then make that part of our culture as a community.
Okay, now being saying that, who's going to teach them how to do that? Who's going to actually take what has been embedded in them for over 300 years and give them a new paradigm shift and say, okay, now you have to think about a legacy for your children. Now you have to start talking about purpose and destiny and dreams, not just fast consuming, microwave mentality, pop it in and pop it out. Okay, who is going to prepare them for that?
The way that's taught, and of course it's taught, it can be taught formally and be taught through educational processes formally. But when you think about it, very simple things like buy black campaigns, teach that in a way that's nonverbal. See, and that's very impactful. That is, what you'll find with human beings is, once they start a process of behavior, many times they don't even understand. Like, my mom and my daddy, my grandparents told me, don't worry about when I tell you to do something, why you do it. You just do it. You do it, and you'll find out later on why it was the right thing to do, which was the truth. And so a lot, again, of what we put in action, like, for instance, Buy Black campaign, teach without even any necessarily verbal or formal instruction.
So you're leading by example.
You permeate the culture with the concepts.
You're going to lead by example.
That's exactly right.
So right now, how do we dispel the negative ideology of the Buy Black campaign? How do we dispel that?
Well, I personally don't think you have to worry about dispelling that within our community. I think that there is a challenge sometimes from other communities, as you mentioned a little earlier, particularly from other communities who look upon us as consumers. Because once again, you got to realize capitalism is all about competition. Nobody wants to give up the consumer part of their industry, right? Everybody wants black people to continue to be consumers of their particular product, goods, and services. It's not going to be an issue, for, I think, us as a people. I think the more we do it, it's going to become more and more natural. The more black folks see quality products, goods, and services within the black business community. And since I've been part of a couple of black business associations, I've just been, I had no idea how much good quality products, goods, and services we have within our business section. I had no idea myself. Okay. I've been in business 30 years.
All right. Okay.
So It's I think going to be a wonderful surprise for most folks. Once we started really moving that direction. Just a matter what it is a matter of doing versus talking.
Talking about it.
It's
So
doing.
does your association actually help people to start businesses? Like if a young entrepreneur came to you and said, "I want to start a business," would your association get involved and giving them capital to do that and get involved in that process?
Our business association is composed of a number of different types of businesses. We also have some individuals who are small business consultants within our group. And their focus, of course, as small business consultant is, in fact, just that, launching entrepreneurship. And so we talked about that also. I mentioned that entrepreneurship as well as business whenever I talk to folks, because entrepreneurship is the launching of a business from an idea, from a conceptual standpoint, actually putting in place.
Do you envision more black businesses starting in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
To what degree?
Well, it's going to be a necessity. For instance, during the time period that I grew up and I came out of high school, jobs were just absolutely plentiful because we had a huge manufacturing base in the country at that time. Those days are gone. I'm going to be absolutely frank. They're over with. And it's going to be necessary for folks to be more and more entrepreneurial just to survive. And that gets back to that little concept of hustling that I told you that's been part of our culture as a community that really lends itself towards that entrepreneur type of activity. The beautiful thing about it is once we get into real business focus, there are a lot of additional benefits that are going to be learned along the process that's going to really help us solidify some of the things right now that's sort of weak points in terms of our family structures, our value systems that are absolutely necessary to be successful as an entrepreneur, and that are going to be additional benefits of being in business. For instance, when you're in business, it's about literally fighting the war. It's like the law of the jungle every day. You go out there, you compete, you struggle, and what that means is at night when you come home, you need stability.
But we shouldn't be fighting against each other. That's what I see
You
right now.
absolutely need stability.
Against each other.
I'm talking about now though. I'm talking about now the family structure.
Okay, the family structure.
When you come back to the house at night, you can't have your kids crying. You can't have your wife upset because she found somebody's phone number, in your pocket. You need a strong, basic family structure. So those things are going to be also part of the additional benefit of being in business that we're going to learn that are going to help us and going to strengthen us as the culture.
Okay, let me ask you
in addition
this.
to the financial end.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Jones. You talk about the family structure. Let's look at the men in the family structure. A lot of the men are either dead, in prison, on drugs. They're not in the home. A lot of the families are being raised by the women. So going forward, we talked about the future thing. We just talked about that. And I asked you the question, do you see more entrepreneurship coming forth? And you said, yes, absolutely. But who's going to be doing that if our men are not taking charge and they're not in charge of the families? Are they going to be the next ones who are going to be starting business, or you think it's going to be the women who's going to lead that charge?
Well, again, what happens is, as we move more and more into entrepreneurship, it's going to strengthen our family structures. It's because it's necessary for you to have a strong family structure if you're going to compete out here in the world as an entrepreneur. You can't fight two wars at the same time. You quickly learn that when you're in business. So you got to take care of your family. You got to take care of your wife. You got to get your kids educated. You got to have peace and quiet and tranquility when you come home at night.
We're out of time right now, so it was really a great show, and I really do appreciate it. A lot of information. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones, for being our guest. Thank you. We'll be back in a few moments with my inspirational thoughts for today. Thank you.
Honey, what are we gonna do with the kids this summer?
S&K Bouncers by renting one of their 3-in-1 bouncers available for all occasions. Birthdays, picnics, family outings, and guess what? They beat any and all prices. Their 3-in-1 bouncers are only $225 for a full day setup. I need you to call and reserve one right now at 313-208-6716.
That's what's up. I'm about to call them now.
Wouldn't you like to know who the father is? For professional DNA testing that costs less than a do-it-yourself kit called DNA Dimensions. It's easy. With a simple swab of the mouth, you can put all doubt to rest. Confidential results in 3 business days. DNA Dimensions with convenient locations in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. Walk-ins welcome in Detroit and Flint. Call toll-free 855-DNA-TEST. That's 855-362-8378. DNA Dimensions, removing all doubt.
Experience this life-changing story that will leave you refreshed, renewed, and inspired to face life's most challenging times. This is a comma, not a period in your life, by Dr. Tanisha Ford. You will never look at sickness and other life's challenges the same again. This is a comma, not a period in your life, by Dr. Tanisha Ford. Go to www.drtford.com to order today.
You're sleeping on Rough Dog Entertainment. The package, the album, is in stores right now, featuring songs like Facebook Pro, D-Boy Thing, and we know y'all love that Chevy Sitting High. You can also download it on iTunes or Amazon, and check us out on Facebook, Moco Space, and YouTube. Rough Dog ENT, RUFFDOGGENT.
Welcome back to my inspirational thoughts for today. The Word of God says it's better to give than to receive. And he also goes on to say that he loves a cheerful giver. And that when you give, good things will come back to you. That's a principle, a universal principle that I want you all to understand. First of all, when you give, make sure that you give from your heart and not based on conditions. You saw the show today, and we talked about entrepreneurship, we talked about the community involvement. But one thing that's going on right now that is hindering our society is that I think that people are afraid to get involved by giving. If you want to see prosperity and abundance come into your personal lives, your homes, your neighborhoods, and your businesses, have your hands open. Because a closed hand not only makes it impossible for you to give, it makes it impossible for you to receive. So understand that principle and give with the right motive. And you may ask yourself, what is in it for me? What is it in it for me? Let me tell you, everything. The satisfaction of knowing that you help somebody on their way who may have a plight. The satisfaction of knowing that you help someone realize their dream and reach their full potential. What kind of satisfaction, what else can beat that? That's the greatest satisfaction in the world, to know that you were involved in someone else's change. This is Dr. Tanisha Ford saying, you have a purpose in life. Discover your own uniqueness, and you discover your true happiness. God bless.